I call this meeting to order. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and as a courtesy via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public and board members, the meeting or hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless required by law. This meeting will be recorded by the local scene. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by viewing the Duxbury government access channels, Verizon 39 or Comcast 9. Viewers can also visit https thelocalscene.media/Duxbury for information about Duxbury programming, including streaming and watching replays on Duxbury YouTube. I already called the meeting to order, but our next item on the agenda is our Pledge of Allegiance. I ask you all to rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Next item on the agenda is open forum. If anybody has an open forum item, they may proceed to the podium. Anybody on the select board? And we do have a hefty agenda, so if there are things that you could email Rainey or myself that you'd like on another agenda, I'd appreciate it. But if there are any open meeting items, you may proceed. I don't.
Me, thank you.
All right.
I can wait under the town manager
Great.
report.
There being nobody at the podium, we'll move right on to new business. We have a very important guest here tonight, our new state representative, Ken Sweezy. Would like to introduce him to the folks here in the community. I don't know if anybody wanted to say a few words or if we'd just let Mr. Sweezy do his work.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you guys for the invitation here today. I will be pretty brief this evening since you guys do have a pretty good agenda. Most towns across the district, so I just want to talk about. So most towns that I'm going to, I'm trying to get to all 5 communities here in the 6 Plymouth district. As stated, I'm the new state rep here that has not only Duxbury, I have all of Duxbury, as well as parts of Marshfield, Pembroke, Hanson, Halifax. 4 out of 5 of those are non-compliant with MBTA. So that's what most of these conversations have been about so far, but I know that's quite a big part of your agenda this evening anyway, so I will leave most of that to your other guests. All I'll really cover today is just a little brief overview about some legislation that's already been filed that will be applicable to that and to Duxbury and such, and then I'll give you guys plenty of time if you do have any questions. But I'm around. I've disseminated some contact info, and I'll make sure I follow up with the town manager and the chair and everything to make sure that you guys have contact info that you can disseminate as well. So as far as legislation goes, for the 2-year session, we have to have all our bills filed in the first 2 weeks, which is always a joy. So we got that done. We had very productive, filed 26 pieces of legislation. As I mentioned, 3 had to do with MBTA zoning compliance. Just to go over those real briefly, 1 is an outright repeal of MBTA zoning. A second is to exempt adjacent communities, which of course would include Duxbury, from the compliance regulations. The third one is sort of to curb regulations. 2 parts to this third bill is 1, it pushes compliance standards out until 2028. There's a lot of litigation ongoing in the courts. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of enforcement problems with the way the law has been written and has been enforced by the administration. So we think pushing it out is going to make the most sense. The second part of that bill also brings the guidelines so that no discretionary funding can be touched by the administration except for what is explicitly written in the original statute from 2021. So now we always hear that the list of grants is growing and growing. Now it's up to, I think, 20-something, and they basically say any funding source that's discretionary can be touched or really just taken away, as we saw with the fire grant situation that happened over the last couple weeks, which I'm glad the administration clarified and reversed course on that for now. Again, I know all the guidelines and new dates and everything are going to get covered. I'm going to be here as well, so happy to jump in and out if you guys have any specific questions for me. during that part of the presentation as well, but just wanted to make sure that I covered those MBTA bills. Specifically, there was a handful of other things that we filed. The other one of strong municipal focus was, we're hearing from everybody about Chapter 70 funds, of course, as the budget process is kicking up. So we weren't able to acquire numbers from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in time for our bill filing deadline to see some of the places that we think might make the most sense to edit the formula. One of the most glaring problems that we see, obviously post-COVID and during the pandemic, where inflation kind of got out of control, there's an inflation cap, for those that don't know, within Chapter 70 that basically puts this ceiling on your funding that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's not really attached to anything, but really just hoarding or protecting the Commonwealth from those sorts of things, but not our municipalities. So we submitted a bill for DESE to study raising or eliminating the inflation cap, which I think would be a good thing for municipalities, and we're going to see what the feasibility of that is for the state. Right now it's at 4.5%. As we know, during parts of 2020 and 21, inflation was almost double that. So a lot of basically the towns just had to eat that. So that's where we're getting aggressive on that. Handful of other things that we took over as well. Really good relationship with my predecessor, former Rep. Cutler. Had about a dozen bills that he filed that didn't make it across the finish line last session that I refiled on his behalf as well. Things relating to water flow in our ponds, to deposits on miniature containers, on NIPS, and things of that nature, as well as 4-H education and a whole host of other things as well. So very productive session so far after just 4 weeks, so about 32 days. So as I mentioned, we have some of our office contact information already, and we'll be getting a permanent office space in the State House, should be in the next couple weeks, so we'll disseminate further information. Happy to answer any immediate questions from you guys.
Yeah, Representative Sweezy, any discussion in legislature about unfunded mandates and making those mandates funded? Any discussion around changing that process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a big problem, and I think that we see a little detachment from reality with the administration as well as regards to budget. I mean, we see a 7.4% raise in the budget up to $62 billion, as well as we're actually taking a vote on a supplemental nearly $500 million emergency spend on Thursday, which I'll be up in Boston for. But that's a big topic of conversation. I think right now, that's sort of always in the background and always something I hear from colleagues that I'm just talking with. Chapter 70 has definitely been a big focus. I think whether it's been from inflation or, transportation reimbursements or whatever it may be, Chapter 70 has kind of been what we've been talking about most often, as, there's certain financial issues across all towns, not any one particular town. But yes, that is definitely something that we're...
Because Post was an unfunded mandate, right? That increased our costs for providing public safety.
Yep.
And that's just one example, and there are many out there. So
100%.
Appreciate your support and see if we can turn that ship around, so to speak.
Yeah, of course. And Post specifically is definitely an area where we're looking, to reform that law from 2020, the Police Reform Act. The Post composition, the composition of the board, rather, and a lot of things with that. I think, everyone's pretty on board for the bulk and the heart of that law, but there's some simple things, whether it's the funding source for the certifications or the composition of the board. There's a few things there we want to take a look at, and we'll be doing so this year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I was wondering if there was anything new or still pending with the whole tech.
With Holtec?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the first things I did, actually, there was 2 issues that I reached out to Mass DEP about, the Department of Environmental Protection, was Holtec and PFAS contamination, as that's obviously an issue also of particular concern down here. When I'm able, I go to the committee, and forgive me for forgetting the acronym, but the ENDICAP meetings that go on down in Plymouth. I try to attend those as best as I can, where Holtec and a Citizens Commission meets in downtown Plymouth once a month to sort of review the decommissioning down there. So the last meeting they had one last week that I wasn't able to go to, but last month's meeting, there was a lot of discussion around the DEP's decision. Holtec is appealing. As of right now, it's still been decided that there's going to be no discharge. I don't know if that's specifically
it's
what
the
you're referencing.
evaporation now is now a big topic.
Yeah, there's still a lot of what I would say, to put lightly, like kind of finger pointing going on about they're doing this, no, we're not, sort of stuff like that. I've heard the concerns, and people don't like that it appears that there's intentional evaporation that's going on. And I know that the DEP is taking, kind of doing everything they can on that. So.
Well, thank you, and thank you for coming to the meeting tonight. I think the MBTA conversation, it'll be good to have you here. I'm hoping that you're going to be supporting some of this, the legislation that either repeals it or,
Yep.
you know, works on these guidelines. So thank you.
In the interest, did you have a question?
I do. Just
Go ahead.
an observation, actually. Ken, I appreciate you being here tonight. And one thing that I had been concerned about during the race, and for this seat in particular, you'd mentioned the communities that you serve. Duxbury is the only one that has one rep. All the others have at least one other rep, and I had expressed some concern that we make sure that our rep, singular, spends a lot of time in Duxbury, and I appreciate that you've been doing that.
Yep.
You were at DiLorenzo Farm not too long ago for the tour on a very cold day. You were calling numbers at Black Tie Bingo. I know you've been visiting. So I just want to acknowledge your efforts in really adopting Duxbury and giving it the attention that I think we deserve. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, and that's a call as well to the board, as well as any member of the public who's here or watching at home. You know, I'm always ready to go out. As Mr. Glennon mentioned, I was happy to take a tour of the DiLorenzo Farm, a public-private partnership, and really do everything I can to learn as much as I can. So I'm always around. I'm very lucky as well. Obviously, Senator O'Connor has done such a great job representing Duxbury for such a long time, and learning alongside him has been very helpful, and I look forward to partnering with him as well to make sure we do everything that Duxbury needs, whether it's, you know, MBTA, PFAS, Holtec, whatever it may be. We're here. So.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
In the interest of time,
Yep.
do you have any office hours, or is there a way folks in the community can reach out to you?
Yep, absolutely. Like I said, I'll follow up with my State House office information, which includes a district phone as well, to make sure that you guys can have that as you seem fit. But we actually did also just schedule our office hours. So my aide and I will be, which I'm excited to introduce. My aide's a great kid, has some, just finished up his military training, member of the Army National Guard. He's been doing a really great job up there as well. But we will be at the Duxbury Senior Center on Friday, February 21st, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. We're also happy to make appointments in person or on the phone as well if you just reach out to our office. But we will be at the Senior Center on the 21st. So, and that'll be a monthly occurrence after that. So, and like I said, I'll stick around for the MBTA situation. So if you guys need anything from me during that, I'll stick around. So, I'm happy to come back anytime, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Does anybody from the community have any questions for our state rep? All right, there being none, I thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Our next item has been scratched. It was a discussion and acceptance of a proposed gift from Peter Quigley regarding the Duxbury Bay Water Quality Study. It's my understanding that Mr. Quigley couldn't be here this evening, so we'll put that on for a future agenda. Yep. The next item is a discussion regarding MBTA zoning, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities compliance requirements, and this will be kicked off by our Town Council, Amy Quessel. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year to those I
Hi,
haven't
Amy.
seen yet. So just real quickly, I was going to first go over the Supreme Judicial Court decision very quickly, and then let you know what comes after that. So again, Amy Quessel with KP Law. On January 8th, the Supreme Judicial Court came out with their decision, which was the Attorney General versus the Town of Milton. And in that decision, the Supreme Judicial Court held that 3A zoning, which is it's General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 3A, that 3A zoning was constitutional. The second point that they determined was that the Attorney General does have the ability to enforce 3A, and she is not limited to enforcement, financial enforcement, meaning she is not limited to subsection B, which provides that if you do not comply, you do not get certain grants. She also has the power to enforce pursuant to Chapter 12, Section 10, which is her plenary powers of enforcement. And the third issue that they determined was that the guidelines were unenforceable. and the guidelines should have been enacted as regulations, and therefore they are unenforceable. So that was on January 8th, which was a Wednesday. We were told that by Friday there would be emergency regulations that would be enacted by the governor. Those actually weren't enacted until Monday. So on the 14th, emergency regulations came out, and those emergency regulations are currently what we're operating under right now. Those emergency regulations require that for any non-compliant town or city, that an action plan be filed by February 13th of 2025, and that zoning be enacted by July 14th of 2025. So other than those two dates changing, there was very little difference between the guidelines and the regulations. So the density requirements, et cetera, are all still the same. Those did not change. The Commonwealth has also, EOHLC has also issued draft regulations on top of the emergency regulations, and the draft regulations are currently out for comment. The comment period is open right now. And again, the draft regulations mirror the emergency regulations. So what that means for Duxbury right now is that an action plan has to be filed by February 13th of 2025. That action plan has a couple of requirements. That is the reason that I'm here tonight, is that the action plan, the town has to certify that it is the full intention of the town manager to take necessary actions to bring any zoning intended to comply with all requirements of 40A Section 3A and 760 CMR 72 to a vote of town meeting in the time frame described in this action plan, and to submit a district compliance application to EOHLC no later than July 14th, 2025. So that is part of the action plan, and that's essentially why I'm here tonight, that you as the select board need to decide if you are going to have the town certify that. Now, what that really means is that you would be directing the town manager to submit in writing that it's his intention to do everything to bring 3A zoning to town meeting. As you know, only the select board can place an article on the warrant. So this doesn't necessarily end here. What happens is that what other communities have done, I can tell you, what other communities are doing is they are having their, whether it be a subcommittee, a task force, or the planning board, bring forward a new or even the same zoning article to be placed on a warrant prior to July 14th. There are also towns that have taken no action yet.
Can I ask?
Questions by the board? Go ahead.
I'll go after you.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy. This is very helpful and very frustrating. This is, as I understand it, with respect to the February deadline, this is largely a box-checking exercise for us, in that we have to say some magic words that you just recited, that I see here in my motion, my draft motion in front of me. But that we can take our the action plan that we submitted originally, so this is going back, whatever it was, a year or two ago, update it such that it requires updating, and submit that. So just to be clear for the folks who are watching, we're not adopting zoning right now. We're simply complying with a February deadline to say we intend to comply with the law.
Correct.
And however that manifests itself is how we would intend to go forward. At least that's what we're saying here. So I'm comfortable well, we have to do it, number one. The SJC has spoken. I know last time we talked about this, the SJC was still thinking about it. It's clear we have to comply with the law at this point. And the question is, what steps do we need to take? And I think as far as the February date goes, we're in pretty good shape there. The question is going to become how quickly can the working group, of which I'm a member, and I see Stephen Tagg in the audience, the chair and vice chair respectively are also here, how quickly we can get back to the drawing board, because last time we saw this movie, it was very clear that the working group was trying to put together something that was workable. In other words, we weren't looking to just comply with the letter of the law. We were trying to comply with the spirit of the law and actually construct something that could result in affordable housing being built over time in some locations. That is something that was left half done, not despite the best efforts of the members of the working group. So I know we're talking about next steps or steps after the next steps, and that's going to require the working group to get back together and go through the process, pick up where we left off, basically, with the expectation that at some point by July, we would have a town meeting that would vote. And of course, what's left unsaid is if town meeting says no again, which I suppose they're entitled to do, then what happens? The AG comes in and says she's going to force it and put it where she wants?
So, so that's not my expectation. I don't know exactly what the Attorney General will do. I have been told by the Attorney General's office that they fully intend to enforce, and enforcement will be quote-unquote swift. However, it's my anticipation that they will enforce it by filing an action in court and having a court tell a non-compliant town that they are not in compliance and they have a certain amount of time to get into compliance. That will then, if the town does not, the town is then in contempt of court. There, as you know, or as you might know, when they first filed against Milton, the Attorney General did, one of her requests for relief was to have a special master come in and enact the zoning. That was abandoned during the briefing process. In my opinion, that would be in violation of 40A Section 5, which requires that town meeting be as the legislative body that enacts zoning. So to have the AG come in and say, here's the zoning and we want it placed here, or to have a special master come in, my opinion is that's in violation of 40A Section 5. However, now that we have the Milton decision saying that this is constitutional and it's mandatory, I think she has a much better case going into court and having a court tell us that it has to be followed.
Okay, that was my question about plenary power. Is that how she will execute it, by going to the courts then?
And again, I don't know, but that's my expectation.
The question for Brian and the task force on the original. So, interesting point you made. By the sounds of it, there was a choice. We could just kind of fit a compliance, or we comply with the intent. Is there an option? The big impact was Bungees, right? Putting
Yes.
And that, can we still comply with the law but not meet its intent by just having the Island Creek being that zoning area?
No, because the law requires, I think it was 50 acres minimum, and it wouldn't all be contiguous. Well, the point is with Island Creek, it's not of an appropriate size, even if we could put everything there. I guess theoretically, and I don't want Bob Hayes to jump out at me here, but theoretically you could just rezone the cemetery, right? And say, yep, we did it. I'm kidding. So the point being is, yeah, if you want to play that game and say, yep, we rezoned, thanks very much for playing. But we didn't do that. We didn't intend to do that.
Some towns did that.
So, some towns, well, maybe. I don't know. There's arguments both ways, but the working group tried to comply the best we can with both the letter and the spirit of the law, because one thing that we've heard over and over from other committees in town, including the Affordable Housing Trust, is that we need something. So as one of our committee members said, Carl Coons, if we've got a bucket of lemons, let's try to make some lemonade. And that was kind of the spirit of what we did with that. But when we go back now, it's clear to me anyway, and I'm just one member, it's clear to me that we're not just going to do a do-over, because that didn't go anywhere,
Yep.
and we're going to get the same outcome. So we need to change locations somehow. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. We haven't had a meeting. But one thing I do want to ask Amy is, when we were talking about grant funding and that sort of stuff, when the guidelines first were in force, that's where all the stick was, saying, if you don't comply, here are the grants that you're not going to be eligible for. The guidelines have been deemed invalid by the SJC. Where is the state getting the authority now to say, hey, you know what, we're going to take away your fire funding, all things that weren't even considered before? If the guidelines are gone, where is the state getting the authority to threaten any grants at this point?
In the actual legislation in subsection B, there are 4 grant funds listed, and those four funds are what the other what the 13 other funds came out of. Essentially, that's where the source of the money. That's what it was supposed to be. The fire funds, in my opinion, was absolutely not allowed. But they're going off of the fact that it's discretionary funding. So the state has because it's discretionary, the state has the ability to say yes or no. And they're going to say no if you're not 3A compliant. But the 4 funds are still in the legislation. They're still in the statute.
Go ahead, Amy.
So we're going to, it sounds like, we may be doing this again.
Yep.
Again, it's going to be up to town meeting.
Correct.
It was a resounding decision before, so I don't know how this goes. I do know, and when Brian just spoke about the intent of this MBTA zoning, you mentioned affordable housing, but there is no intent to create affordable housing in the MBTA zoning. So it goes back to, I think, one of the big stumbling points that we had before, which was that this actually puts us to adopt the MBTA zoning. It puts us further behind the state mandate of affordable housing because of the percentages. So we had talked about doing a feasibility study which would allow for any zoning that the town does adopt to have at least a 20%. I'd vote for higher. I don't know if you could do that, but at least it would count towards that affordable need and quota. So my question is, somehow can we get funding? Is there time? Now that we have a reset, and if it is the intention in any way to do the affordable, can we do that?
Can I answer that one?
Yeah.
I would ask, sorry, Fernando, putting you on the spot. You're the liaison to the Affordable Housing Trust?
Correct.
They decided they weren't going to spend any money on a feasibility study.
Oh.
Would you mind re-asking them
I could do that.
to do that?
Only if town meeting voted it down,
Yes.
right, which makes total sense, because you
I
wouldn't
understand.
spend
So
money.
what was that, Brian?
That the Affordable Housing Trust agreed, to their credit, to fund
Right.
the study as
Right.
long as town meeting voted to approve
To
the zoning.
approve, yeah.
Yeah,
Because otherwise, we wouldn't need the study.
right.
So
But
that's why.
now, when we're starting again, sort of from scratch,
Right.
it would be good to have that ahead of time.
Right, and that's Mike's question to
Right.
Fernando.
Yeah,
yeah.
we got some we've got some time crunch here, and
The time crunch is when are we going to have the meeting?
yeah, and I have questions about
Probably in
that.
May.
We have a special meeting in May.
Probably.
So, first question, we're directing you. Could you talk about this from a logistical standpoint and a financial standpoint? We exhausted our funds for the technical assistance.
Correct.
well, the funds that were given by the state, and there was problems with the maps. There's talk about doing a redo here. And town meetings, I saw Sue, aren't free,
No, they're not.
so, and require time.
Yeah.
So we're directing you to do something. Is this something you could potentially do?
Oh, sure. The letter, easy. It's simple.
I get that.
With regard to town meeting, I talked to Susan. I literally just sent her a text while we're sitting here. I was thinking probably early May, do it on a Monday night. It's all going to be driven by how quickly the MBTA folks can get together.
So Brian?
I think that's an
not-
aggressive
Back on the
timeline.
horse.
That's a pretty aggressive timeline.
I don't know if it is or not. I'd just throw out May.
I mean, we were told this study could take some time.
Because my suggestion would be to do it before school's out, because then parents are gone on vacation.
So you could do it at the beginning of June, in theory.
Okay, that works
I mean,
too.
in theory.
Or
I just threw out
anytime.
May, just 'cause that's
Parents
when-
will come back, wherever they're going to come back.
Can I just speak to the, talking about the vote
Yeah.
and the issue of the study. My recollection, and I'll ask Amy if she knows, the study, as I understand, given that there are so many towns trying to do these studies at the same time, that there simply wasn't enough horsepower in the marketplace for all these consultants to get reports done, and that the study, and when we say study, it's so we as a town can require more than 10% affordability, or 10% of the units being affordable in whatever's built, that can come after the zoning is passed.
That is correct,
Okay,
provided that your zoning bylaw provides for that, which yours did.
right.
So you can allow up to 10% of affordability, which your zoning bylaw did, and then you can go up to 20% if your FIS, your feasibility impact study, if EOHLC accepts it.
Well, what is the chances of them accepting it or not accepting that? I mean, it seems it's an important component for us.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know whether they would accept it or not accept it. I can't tell you that I actually have a town where they've come back with a decision yet, because they're so overloaded with them. Most towns are looking for 20%
Yeah,
of
okay.
affordability.
So these emergency, and I have a question about this overall, but these emergency regulations, do they have a time that they want draft regulations into them for pre-approval or anything like that?
So there's been a very robust campaign by EOHLC and the Attorney General's office to offer help to non-compliant communities. They have not issued anything saying that, for example, they need it 90 days ahead of time like they did before. They have no timeline, but they have both reached out to say that they are, more than happy to do pre-approvals and things like that. They haven't set a timeline.
Before 5 o'clock on the night of
That would be nice.
Yeah.
So there's that, because I in all fairness, if we're going to ask people to come out to a town meeting again and put money and time and resources into a town meeting, let's do this, let's get that kind of done in a timely fashion. I'd like to know that,
Yep.
or for the working group, before we start scheduling things.
And I can definitely reach out to EOHLC about that.
The other piece here, emergency regulations, draft regulations. Well, let's start with the emergency ones. Has KP issued any guidance on the enforceability of those, or the lawfulness of them, and how long they can be?
Sure, emergency regulations, there has to be some kind of public health crisis, which there's a housing crisis which connects to a public health crisis, and that was the basis for the Commonwealth enacting emergency regulations. The emergency regulations are only good for 90 days. So the draft regulations will be final before the 90 days is up.
Now, how does timeline on draft regulations? You're saying that, so they're expediting the draft regulations?
Yes. Yep, they're out. So Just so you know, there was filed today. There was a lawsuit filed today against EOHLC challenging the emergency regulations. The lawsuit was filed by a woman from Winthrop. I anticipate that will have standing issues and most likely be dismissed on standing grounds. Other than that, and until a court acts on that complaint that was filed today, the emergency regulations are in effect.
I guess I ask about these draft regulations because the SJC and during argument there was this concern about there not just being these check boxes that they missed, that there's a study that they needed to do, and community, they had put out for comment and things like that. So how is that going to be done within 90 days?
So they've already put them out for comment. I don't think they've scheduled the public hearing yet, but they will have a public hearing on them. And once that public hearing has concluded, they then sometimes will make changes to the draft regulations. Then the draft regulations will be they'll be placed into the register. The register will go out and they'll become final. So I can tell you that the draft ADU, the accessory dwelling unit regulations, those were put out for public comment on December 20th, with public comment ending on January 10th. So that really kind of cut into my holidays. But in any event, they did a public hearing on January 10th. They did issue draft regulations on January 17th that were changed. There were revisions based on public comment. I do have to give EOHLC some credit there. They're not, in my opinion, they're not perfect, but they did make changes. Whether they make changes to these draft regulations or not, I don't know. I don't know what they'll do. One thing that I will say, just based on some of the comments that you guys have made, what you would be presenting to town meeting would be zoning only, and so that zoning would allow for multifamily development. Once that multifamily development is built, that is when your subsidized housing inventory gets impacted. So if multifamily housing does get built, that does mean that your year-round housing stock will go up, which means your 10% will also need to go up. But just enacting the zoning will not impact your subsidized housing inventory. And then you can't put it over a cemetery. That is
We knew
that
that.
is excluded land. That is excluded land. So
heard that, Bob.
just wanted
winding
to
Bob up. It's okay.
stop any kind of panic there. So
Do any other board members have questions? I see a hand raised on the screen.
Are we open to the public now?
Sure.
Yeah. I'd like to ask Attorney Dennison to come to the podium and maybe share his thoughts as he has been working on this type of zoning for other towns.
Hi, Wayne Dennison, 320 Standish Street. I'm the vice chair of the planning board, the chair of the zoning board, and have been dealing with this issue for some time. The importance of housing in the Commonwealth is clear-cut. The issue here, though, is how do we best address that important issue? And quite frankly, I think it can be best addressed, at least in my estimation, by compliance with what the state is requiring, and then thoughtful revision to the zoning ordinance on a going forward basis. But what I am talking about is largely, and I'll admit it, compliance for the sake of compliance.
Right.
Because I have a very good, strong sense of where this town was after town meeting. And I'd hate to see us lose grant money. I'd hate to see us be in violation of state law. But I do believe that we could designate already significantly developed areas in our town such that we could comply with the requirement and that there would likely be no significant developmental impact for many, many years, 10, 15 years. During which time we, I am hopeful, can come up with some zoning amendments that deal with multifamily housing in a more thoughtful, more considered way. But I do think that paper compliance is possible. I know that many communities in this Commonwealth have done that. I've addressed that issue in other instances. And I'm going to tell this board that I actually advocate for compliance, but a compliance that requires us to put an overlay district over places that are already significantly developed and that will unlikely to be developed in any material way for many years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the input and
Appreciate it.
food for thought, I'm sure.
Miss Babcock, I believe that's who. It's not Antonio Brown.
That would be cool.
Might be.
Hi,
Hi.
can you hear my?
Yes, we
video?
can hear you, yes.
Everybody. So I have a couple of concerns and some questions for maybe Attorney Questle. Some of this doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I'd like to argue that we actually technically are in compliance by default because there are no guidelines right now. Because technically we can't comply because there's no compliance language. Because we can't enforce an unenforceable law because everything about the law was in the guidelines. So it kind of seems like until they flesh that out and change the guidelines, then what are we chasing? And taking that a step further, in order for the state to change the guidelines, I'd like to know what's involved in that, because we're talking about 177 towns. Seems like that's going to take a very long time. I believe there's some sort of public process that has to happen in order to achieve that. So I don't see how that's going to happen within this emergency period. The other part is, seems like a bit of a stretch to be calling a zoning mandate an emergency. That seems like that could easily be argued. And to throw it under the umbrella of a public health emergency because of a housing shortage, that also doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because there are, I mean, if you look at the towns of Cohasset and Hingham, let's say, who have been complying, there is a lot of inventory that is unrented, even at, like, you know, what they want to call affordable market value. So I guess I don't understand this housing shortage that the state is claiming that we have. And if there is really a housing shortage, why are they tying it to the MBTA and commuting? Those two things don't seem like they should be tied together if there's truly a housing crisis. This seems to me more like they were pushing this toward making things maybe more convenient for for people to commute and have different housing options, maybe toward the suburbs. But if you really think about it, people aren't even really commuting anymore because the ridership is down, because since COVID, people are working from home. So I just am very concerned that we're going to wind up with a surplus of housing that sits empty. These developers, of course, need to fill these spaces, so if they don't rent at market value, they turn into Section 8. And I think based on all of the conversations that the Select Board and the Finance Committee have been having lately about the Proposition 2.5, I think that we can all agree that the public safety departments are really shorthanded, and I don't see how we can absorb that type of population on top of chasing an affordable housing percentage. So with all of that being said, I would really encourage the Select Board to get behind the sentiment of the town and not push anything forward. I'm a little concerned that anything that we do send in, any kind of a plan, might commit us to something that we ultimately don't want. And I just think it's not a great idea for Duxbury. It doesn't work for us. So anyway, that's all I have. And if Attorney Queswell could maybe speak to the guidelines and how that process goes in order to get those changed, that would be great. I'd appreciate that.
Attorney Questle, is there anything more you want to add other than what you did in response to my question?
Not really, Mr. Chairman. The legislation was enacted in 2021 under Governor Baker, and the day that it was enacted, essentially everybody was out of compliance because it required, the legislation actually required that cities and towns have this 15 units per acre zoning. So the guidelines actually gave towns some breathing room, some time to come up with that. The emergency regulations, as I stated, they are valid until they're held to be not valid. Right now, they are valid, and they are in effect. They have deadlines, and the draft regulations have been issued. Their public comment is open, and those I expect those to be finalized within 30 to 60 days.
Okay. And the law itself, the Supreme Judicial Court found it to be constitutional?
Absolutely.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the audience?
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask if either of you guys are interested, Steve or Tag, do you want to speak to at all your thoughts as to the process between now and May, June? I know the working group has not met yet to talk, but...
And I was going to ask, like, more open-ended, even more open-ended, what kind of blessing do you need from us to get started?
Nothing, he's got it.
Yeah, I figured as much.
Steve Gant, 265 West Street. I'm the chair of the working group that's been working on the MBTA communities process. Mike, to your last question first, you might recall back a couple of months ago, you essentially, our original charter was scheduled to end at the end of November. And the Select Board voted to give us basically an open-ended engagement.
Okay.
So we're engaged. We're technically still engaged as a group for a time indefinite. So with that said, we are. I have not spoken with the group as a whole since town meeting. So with your blessing and at your direction, I will reach out to the group and ensure you've got two of us right here, three of us. We're basically ready to go. But reach out to the rest of them and see. Hopefully all of them are still willing to be engaged. If not, we may need to discuss adding additional members and such. But we're primed and ready to go at your direction.
Go ahead.
And maybe, I'm not sure this is for you, Steve, but I'm still thinking about what Alicia said, and I think it would be it's important to recognize that we are elected by the residents of the town. That's our job, to represent the wishes of the residents of this town. And the residents of the town made a very big showing at town meeting and made their wishes clear. I'm wondering if, Amy, is there any other towns that you represent that have not moved forward with directing the town manager in this way, or are struggling in the same way that we are, that you can speak to?
No, only because these emergency regulations came out, and literally there's probably there's at least 6 out of the 30 towns that are non-compliant are meeting tonight or tomorrow night to discuss this. The other non-compliant towns, I think, are going to try and meet before February 13th, whether to direct their town administrator or town manager, to act or not act. So no one has actually taken a vote and said no, do not act. And so it's really, this week is really when everybody's.
We're in a bit where it's a bit of a tough spot. I mean, I get what some, compliance for the compliance sake, and I think we're pushing this off to town meeting again, and it'll be up to them, as it always is, as it rightfully should be. But I feel for the working group. They worked hard last time. They put a ton of work into it. I know that it's trying to find the least worst situation. They did a good job with that. Here we go again. So I'm feeling conflicted.
I'm struck by Attorney Dennison's comments, right? The big issue was obviously Bonji and that area. But if we can find a way to comply with the letter of the law, right, but and identify areas that are already developed, then that could be an option that's worthwhile looking at.
Well, what's the downside or the harm of checking this box?
None,
None.
just other than a lot of work again for the committee and a town meeting, and I don't know that there'll be any change in the community's vote. I don't know that, so there is no harm.
The other end of this is money. I know that you had professional assistance before. I think that would be a big thing to address up front here, is how would an article be drafted without that? Is there resources available to get that technical assistance?
As was mentioned earlier, we had exhausted all the funds that were allocated for the first effort that we had made. Perhaps Rebecca might be able to address this more specifically. But the state has indicated that they are willing to consider providing the town of Duxbury with additional funds that can help us in this regard. Whether we would be granted those funds, and if they did, to what extent they would be sufficient for this effort, that's speculation at this point. We do have the files, we do have all the information that was provided by our consultants previously, and we can certainly work with those ourselves to some extent. I, quite frankly, would prefer that we engage a consultant again to assist us with this, given the technical nature of it, and given the fact that there are a lot of technical matters that we need to comply with, and that they're especially well positioned to assist us with when we need to do that. So.
Can I make a comment? Sorry.
Yeah,
Sure.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, what the definition of insanity is repeating yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We want to do that. We have Attorney Creswell with KP Law. Kessel?
Sorry.
Attorney Quesel? Thank you. Thank you. Who is totally competent and able to do hopefully, to be able to help us. I know we had a conversation beforehand. Sorry to put you on the spot, but it would be good to have your eyes on the final language of the zoning bylaw. That is your area of expertise, right?
Yes, definitely. I would review the final language. There is modeling that has to be done.
Right.
And that has to be done by an engineering firm or a planning firm.
Got it.
However, as Steve said, they do have all the modeling from the last, and they didn't just model those 2 locations. They modeled other locations.
Right.
So those other locations can be considered.
Right.
And then having some more time, we can also look to bylaws that passed town meeting and were certified by EOHLC and use those as examples. So we do have, there's
Okay.
some things that are, I hate, a positive maybe
Right.
in this, which is, nothing's really positive about this.
Mike, I've got a quick question, too.
Yeah, go right ahead, Rainey.
Amy, in the letter from the state, I think they said that there were only 2 or 3 things wrong with our bylaw. Is that the proposed bylaw? Is that right?
So there was, yes, the first issue was a modeling issue, and
Yeah.
that's the thing that would have to definitely be fixed by
Uh-huh.
an engineering firm. And then the others were their opinion on some language in the existing bylaw, your existing bylaw, that
Okay.
they thought needed to be changed. I personally don't exactly agree with them, but we have time to work that out.
But it looks as though they showed us sort of a path to
Yes,
compliance, if you
definitely,
will.
definitely.
So if those things are addressed, then we bring it back to the voters as packaged, and that's kind of that?
No, to send the, that's the definition of insanity, to send the same package back.
It won't be, though. It'll be corrected
It'll be
per the
also-
state.
It'll be corrected, but.
Possibly a different location.
Yeah.
One location would possibly be
There
different.
we go, there we
And
go.
for the modeling, did we get a price, and that's kind of for the MBTA folks, I don't know what the cost was.
I don't. That
Do you
would be up to
remember?
the
Do you guys,
consultant.
did we ever get an estimate on that?
I'm here to say I don't know what the exact number is. It was, but I do know that we did go well over the budget that was
Oh, I know.
established.
We were pretty
that
much begging at the end, I remember that, and they were
Yes.
very kind in helping
Yes.
us out.
Yes, we definitely got our money's worth, that's for
Okay,
sure.
and that was with Stantec, right?
It was with Stantec, and then we had kind of a unique situation. We engaged Stantec, and then partway through the entire exercise, a subgroup within Stantec broke off and formed an organization called Community Scale. And so we had a situation where we had 2 organizations that were assisting us throughout the process. Stantec was primarily involved with the modeling, whereas Community Scale was primarily involved with drafting the bylaw.
If we were to go back and readdress this, as it looks like we might have to, who do we use?
That's an excellent question.
Good, that's an MBTA group question.
Yes. We'll
Yeah,
put it on our agenda.
That's a good question. I've in conversations that I've had with others, I understand that that Stantec has expressed a desire not to do further work with us on this. That's
Sure.
not necessarily definitive. But if it wasn't Stantec, quite frankly, I'm not familiar with other firms that
Me
are
neither.
that are
Okay.
doing this. So it may take a little research to figure out who we want.
So mechanically, it looks like all of these things can happen. It's the question of desire, I guess.
Question for you, I guess, Amy, to you, something Fernando mentioned earlier tonight just popped in my mind. We're talking about a process that we're now very clearly required to go through. It's going to cost us money. Is the state providing us with money to comply with that mandate?
So most likely, they have been providing grant money for assistance. This money does come from EOHLC. So far they have been funding this. So whether there's an argument that there's an unfunded mandate or not is yet to be seen. And just so you know that was there was an allegation that it was an unfunded mandate by the town of Rentham, and the auditor's office declined to do anything on that because they were waiting for the SJC to act. So
Now,
we don't have an answer on that.
all our town clerks here, would it be appropriate for our town clerk to apply for that grant funding for both the town meeting that we did and for the town meeting that's potentially going to happen?
That I would anticipate that wouldn't cover the town meetings.
Okay, just figured I'd ask. I'm ready for a motion.
Oh,
Go right ahead.
sorry, I'm still struggling with this because, you know, we're talking about a different location, so we can be fairly certain that while we may not have the same group of citizens that come out, you know, we're going to have another group of citizens. So you know, if we're going to, you know, kind of buy some time, start this process over again, and, you know, I ask the residents, stay tuned, you know, stay informed, come to these task group meetings so that you can remain up to speed, because here we go again.
I move.
Excuse me, could I, one more question before you vote? I'm sorry, I don't know if you saw my hand. Could I ask Attorney Questle, who is driving that meeting with the other towns that have decided not to comply? And is that like the community at large that's organizing that, or is that something more official through the town officials? And also, I think we discussed Duxbury trying to join forces with some of these other towns after we had our town meeting. Would it make sense to, if that's happening this week, would it make sense to send some representatives from Duxbury to sit in on those meetings and kind of see what kind of momentum and, you know, kind of conversations are happening there before Duxbury decides what, you know, what they're going to do?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I
Sure.
absolutely did not say that any towns were having meetings as to not complying. That is not the case.
Yeah, they just haven't scheduled their meetings.
They just haven't scheduled their meetings.
Okay.
Or town meetings, right, or they're,
Yep.
okay.
And
Yep.
May I make a motion?
yes.
I move that the Select Board directs the Town Manager to draft a memorandum to attach to the 2025 Action Plan for MBTA communities, stating that it is the Town of Duxbury Select Board's intention to take the necessary actions to bring any zoning intended to comply with all requirements of General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 3A, and 760 CMR 72, to a vote of town meeting, and to submit a district compliance application to EOHLC no later than July 14th, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okey
I
dokey.
think we have votes. Has everybody voted? All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Next, thank you very much, Council.
Thanks, Amy.
There you are.
I apologize for the misnaming.
Next item on the agenda is a discussion
Thanks, Amy.
regarding approval of matching grant funds for the following: a Temple Street Dam removal project, which will be presented. I'll start with this one with Nancy Rufo, our Conservation Administrator. Thank you.
Good evening, Nancy Rufo, Conservation Administrator. I'm here tonight to request $125,000 in matching funds for a grant for removal of the Temple Street Dam. This has been going on long before my time. I think it started in 2016. It's a partnership with many people, primarily the town and the Mass Department of Fish and Game, Division of Ecological Restoration, and the North and South River Watershed Association. You can go on, Michelle. Michelle, are you doing the slides? Oh, sorry. You can go to the next one. Yep. So the major project goals, essentially what we're trying to do here is to restore the natural hydrology to the extent practicable, restore the fish and wildlife passage, reduce or eliminate the need for dam maintenance by DPW staff, and then mitigate the impacts of climate change. Interestingly enough, I was there this morning with the DPW. There was a breach about 100 feet north of this structure. Tag Carpenter, I guess he left, he alerted me to it. So there's clearly a need in this area to restore a more natural flow of the water. So you can go to the next one, Michelle. So these are some of the critical wildlife that are impacted, that we're trying to restore a more natural environment for. And then the next slide will show you the project area. If you're not familiar with where the dam is, if you're going Temple Street north, cross over the highway. Feinberg Bog is on your right. About a quarter of a mile past that, on your left, there's a little parking area with the Camp Wing trailhead, like across the street. If you go in there, that's where you'll find the Temple Street Dam. What we considered with the design, there are 3 residents downstream in Marshfield. So we considered, we're very mindful that they would not be impacted. And also we had 2 public information sessions so far. We had a lot of feedback in addition to those residents in Marshfield, hunters who wanted to make sure that the water level would still be sufficient for duck hunting. So now Becky Malamut from North and South River Watershed is going to come up and talk about some of the design and the funding.
Hey there, thank you. So if you want to go to the next slide. So here are some of the objectives, and these are pretty similar to most of our objectives of dam removals and river restoration in the watershed. Restoring connectivity of the river and of habitats, removing the physical barrier, the dam, and then limiting flood impacts to downstream and upstream structures. Upstream is not an issue here. One thing I wanted to note too is this is part of a larger South River restoration project. This was DER, Division of Ecological Restoration, took this as a priority project back in 2016. So it includes Veterans Memorial Park Dam, which was just removed. The dam itself came down last Monday. It's about a 6 to 8 month project, but excuse me, that's the first dam up from the ocean. And then there's Chandler Pond Dam, which is also in Marshfield. It's private. It's on private property. We are in the process of working on that. We have a conceptual design. That one's in a much earlier stage. And then Temple Street. These are the only 3 barriers on the South River. Incredibly exciting projects to have that first dam removed and to hopefully have these 2 subsequent dams removed as well. So if you want to go to the next slide. So there's a pretty precipitous drop here at that dam. So what the consultants have needed, the engineers have done, and this is maybe took 2 or 3, if not more, people to look at this and come up with the design that will work to both limit flooding and provide enough flow for the fish to pass. So they're going to create a series of riffles. I think it's 3 riffles that are kind of like steps that create the slope that's needed to have the water move slow enough in order to not increase flooding, but fast enough for the fish to pass. And as Nancy mentioned, there's a really beautiful freshwater wetland behind the dam. Very often you see these big impoundments, which are don't operate the same way that this does at Temple Street. And as a result of this design, most of that wetland will remain. We're going to lose a very little bit of that. So we're going to go to the next project, or next line. So this is our project timeline. We're really far. We're pretty far advanced. Most, if not all, of this work has currently been paid for by the state. We're currently in the permitting piece. We're waiting on 2 final federal permits, Section 404 and Section 401 of the Clean Water Act. We have finished MEPA. We received a Chapter 91 waiver. The Endangered Species program, we're clear there. Those 2 permits were submitted last June. We're hoping to hear this spring. Once those are submitted or completed, then we'll go before Concom with an NOI, and then we'll be able to start construction. And after we do any final design that might be needed, tweaks as a result of those permits. So, you know, the biggest piece, if you want to go to the next slide, is funding of the construction. So, total project cost is about $660. DER is putting in another $50 on top of, I think they put in at least 100, if not 150 to this point. We have received an anonymous grant from a foundation a couple years ago, so we were able to put $250,000 in, and we came to the town for some money as well. So, you know, Nancy was able to get a $125,000 match approved. I'm currently, you know, in the process of applying for a federal grant as well as a national partnership grant as well to cover that delta. MVP could potentially be an issue, but be a possibility depending on how things go as a state grant that we didn't receive in Marshfield a year ago, but we were told to continue to go along with the process this year. So that's where we are. That's where the project sits. If we're funded and permitted, we could start construction as early as this fall. Construction itself would maybe take about 8 weeks. Veterans Park is this really large-scale project where they're doing a lot of park improvements. That's going to take a very long time. This is a much different, really smaller project. We do see fish in this area. There is evidence of them getting up this far through those other impediments. So there's no reason to think that we wouldn't be able to get a really fully connected operating system again.
Thank you.
Any questions for the board? Go
I
ahead.
have a couple. You mentioned that you were in contact with the folks downstream, I guess, who are in Marshfield. Is there any homeowners impacted upstream?
No,
Okay,
no.
thank you.
Yeah, and there's also some town infrastructure just downstream as well. There's a bridge just downstream. I don't remember the name of the road. But that's been a large part of the planning, too, is to make sure there are no issues there with the footings of the bridge or anything like that, that they won't be impacted.
And if we grant, or if we approve the $125,000 and the other grant funds that you hope to get are not awarded, what happens?
We just keep looking for more money.
Well,
Never give up.
Never give up. It's kind of the wild, wild west right now with funding. If these two, we've already, applied for some that didn't get, applying for others. So it's just kind of, these projects take decades, and part of that is the funding. It's that longest piece. So this whole South River Restoration project was conceived in 2012. And we're just removing the first one in 2025. So we'll find other funding.
If we approve this, can we make it subject to the receipt of all necessary funds to make the project go forward?
You could.
Because we're very sensitive to any money going out right now. Well, always, but especially now.
Yeah, this is coming from the matching grant fund article, so it's
Yeah.
specific to that. This wouldn't have any
That's what I
impact on the
wanted.
operating
that's what
budget.
I'm
I
trying
wanted to ask
How much
about
money have you got
that.
left in there?
What do we have left in there? And
Yeah. How's that?
I think it's around 500,000, but I don't. Do you remember, Nancy? It was
So we had
250.
we had 250 left, right? I think we spent 250 for the seawall, the sand.
But the motion is actually using 250. Oh, that's for both projects. Sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's 100 and a quarter. Yeah, so we got 250 in there.
Do we
But
have
that
a-
so
couldn't
we
be
have
used for the
money
operating
in
budget
our
either.
matching grant fund already.
For
We-
this.
And that was something we were going to try to keep
Going.
with that every year. So
Exactly.
Try.
And I'll say that it's very difficult to get funding, state or federal funding, or even just like regular foundation funding, if you don't see the dam owner, being the town, throwing some skin in the game. So it will be really hard to not be able to use a town match as leverage for any future funds.
Yep.
Is
Brian,
there,
the answer is yes.
Okay.
So,
what was the question?
Well, I'm concerned about authorizing $125,000 that then doesn't actually result in the
grant.
removal of the dam, and then the money's kind of just stuck somewhere. I'm personally in favor of
Yeah, it's a good
authorizing it. It sounds like a reasonable project to me, but I don't want the money going out unless we know that it's going to be spent for that purpose, as opposed to kind of being stuck in limbo for who knows how long. I'd rather keep that in our treasury and with a lot of needs for a lot of money here.
Yeah.
Is it reimbursable at the end?
Yeah.
So it sits here until we get a bill?
We wouldn't
So-
be able to go out to bid
It
until
wouldn't
we
go
had the
any-
funds to pay
Yeah.
for it.
So
And we
that's
wouldn't
fine.
touch the money until work had started.
and that was my point is, when we match grants, there's a grant that we're matching. And there's this idea that there's certain grants they're trying to seek, and it's nice to have a pot to say that the town's committed some. This isn't a donation towards the project. This is a matching a grant. Is there a way this can be contingent upon matching a grant, which is what the town meeting set that 250 for?
Yeah, that's what this request is.
Okay. And that if there isn't a grant ascertained, that
It doesn't go anywhere.
it comes back, because
But
this is
it
a
never
very
leaves.
finite.
It doesn't leave until they've got project approval.
Okay.
It doesn't
about-
leave until they've got the other.
Grant.
It doesn't go ahead, they don't take the 125 until they got the balance, the 360 that they're looking for to proceed, right?
I meant a grant to proceed. We match grants. So,
Yeah, they're looking for the 235, right? So we say we're gonna have available 125,000 match, and they're gonna go to the to the feds and say, hey, we got this 125 match, can we get 235? And then the feds say, yeah, then that's when they got the money, the project proceeds. If we give them if they go to the feds with the 125 and the feds said, no way, Jose, we're not giving you that grant, that money stays with us. It doesn't it doesn't go towards the project. It stays with us until they find somebody else, the 235,000. They get the 235 and then we give them the 125 to construct the project. That's what I'm understanding,
So,
right?
so using the money in the fund that we've already established, does that just require a vote of the select board? So,
Or me, but because of this one, because of the nature of these two, I wanted you guys to see them.
okay, so if we approve this, which I too am in favor of this, are we going to go back to town meeting this year with another article to replenish?
I have to look at the special. I haven't finished it yet. I do have a quick question, though. When you mention the restoration of sea lamprey, they're a parasitic species. Why do we want to promulgate that?
They're not all bad. So they, I mean, it is their
of what?
habitat.
Sea lamprey, those when they latch onto it, I mean, they can eat 30 to 40 pounds of fish a year on an individual. It's a parasite. I didn't know why we were concerned
So
about.
do we have a lot of issues with that happening?
No, I just saw it on your
in the
slide
system?
presentation.
Yeah, no,
I know that in the
familiar
Great
with that
Lakes and
being-
Lake Champlain, they're everywhere.
Yeah, but I mean, it's their habitat, right? They're native to this system.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not familiar with too many instances of that happening in this system.
Okay, I didn't know if there were any because I noticed there were three.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about sometimes when they go out to catch fish that they'll come up, they'll see them like attached either to their fish or to their rods, or. But I don't know of any instances or issues with humans.
All right, thanks.
Anything else?
No, I think I'm ready for a vote.
I think I have it set up here
Okay,
for
so we'll do
two
the second.
motions, one motion with two parts.
Yeah,
that
right.
Sheila's up
Fine with
next.
the board?
Can't see if there's
Thank you very much.
anybody on Zoom now.
Is there anybody in the Zoom that's put their hand up, Michelle? That's a good point.
But Sheila's up next to present, and she is on Zoom.
So that it's a twofer.
Yes,
Oh, so we're not going to do a motion now and,
there she is.
Well, it's
The
set up
motion
in
is-
the draft as
We have to split
250.
it up. We'll split it up.
okay.
Hi, Sheila. Another late
Can
night.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so the second math request is another $125,000, which would deplete the $250,000 that you have available. And that's for a grant match for the Washington Street Sidewalk Project. I don't know if you're aware, I don't think the state has made it public yet, but on January 14th, the town was notified that we received a $500,000 complete streets grant for the Washington Street sidewalks.
Excellent.
Great.
Yeah, so we've prioritized the first 3 phases, and that's a total of 2,260 linear feet of sidewalk. That would be 5-foot wide ADA compliant sidewalks, asphalt with sloped granite curbing, and the total estimated construction cost is actually $644,000 for that. So we're asking for $125,000 to match. That doesn't quite make up the difference. So what we're looking at to offset that is to use Chapter 90 money. Another thing to be aware of, in looking at the contract we currently have with Apex, who's doing the design right now, that contract doesn't include, from what I've seen, anything to do with bidding assistance, construction administration, or construction inspection. So I think it's very important to have the engineer involved in those aspects. So that'll be an additional cost that hasn't been factored in, and we're looking again to use Chapter 90 money for that. So the plans are currently under design. I haven't seen them yet because they haven't quite completed the preliminary design. Apex anticipates the design will be ready for my review within the next couple of weeks. I anticipate we'll have a public input process. There's a lot that goes into these sidewalks. Hopefully we don't have to move too many structures, utility poles, fences. cobblestone berms, but those are all possibilities. So just to confirm, the segments we're looking at are, the number one priority segment is from Fort Hill Lane to Bluefish River. That's about 850 linear feet. Segment 2 is from Freeman Place to 430 Washington Street, which is roughly across from Bayside Marine. That's 1,370 linear feet. And then segment 3 is from Surplus Street to Freeman Place, and that's about 400 linear feet. So all total, again, that's 2,260 linear feet, which is about $285 a foot for the construction estimates.
Wow.
All right.
This is great news.
Yeah.
It's something the town's been waiting for a long time.
That's right. We got turned down the first time we applied, so we applied again and were successful the second time. So that's good news.
Great. Any questions from anyone? All right, there being none, I'm happy to take a motion.
Okay, before I make the motion, Randy, I just want to clarify or make sure I'm clear. The way the motion is currently drafted, is it understood, since we're using the phrase matching grant to Mike's point, that if we authorize the 125 for the dam removal project, that it won't be spent unless or until the grant that it is matching has been awarded?
Yes,
All right, and the minutes will so reflect?
they will.
Excellent. I move that the Select Board approve the use of $250,000 in matching grant funds in the following manner. $125,000 local match for the Temple Street Dam Removal Project and $125,000 local match for the Complete Streets Grant regarding Washington Street Sidewalks Project as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's great. Thank you, Sheila.
Thanks, Sheila.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great news.
Right. We now have a discussion regarding appointing a Select Board rep to the Coastal Resiliency Task Force. Cindy, did you want to
Yeah.
explain this?
Yeah, it's not quite exactly that. Right as it stands now, the Select Board rep, so to speak, is a full member of the task force.
Okay.
Unlike most of what we do, we are liaisons
Right.
from here to a task force. And so that's the change. The change is to take it from the Select Board being a representative, being a liaison, from being a full member. And it's a change in what our charge is too, so.
Okay. So right now, how many members are there on the Coastal Resiliency Task Force? 7?
I think there's one.
Not how many there actually are, but how many, like, will this change it so that there's not an odd number?
I think there's 5.
What's the reason for this change?
Yeah.
Why would we want it
To take the Select Board person
and make
as a
them a
full
liaison?
member
Yes,
to a
why?
liaison? Just time. Because it was my idea, I'm the person that's a member of that committee, and although my intention is to continue to go to meetings and participate, it's a different level of time commitment.
That's fine.
Looks like there's 6 members, including vacancy 1, who's the Select Board representative. Just FYI, it looks like Mickey McGonigal, Kristen Rapp, Lenore White, Bo Boynton, Brian Walsh, and then a vacancy.
So we'll be we'll be putting somebody on tonight, Nate Kessel,
So would that be just a member at large?
member at large.
Okay.
Okay. I have no concerns with it.
Well, I'm happy to offer that motion then.
All right. Anybody from the public have any questions? Okay. There being none, I'll take a motion.
What Cindy said, I move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Now we have a Select Board call for the election and a vote to insert a ballot question and a vote to opt in for in-person early voting for the March 22nd, 2025 annual town election. I know there's a call that I have to do,
Yep, I've got it right here.
and but I also maybe some explanation.
Good evening.
The call for the election is procedural that you do before every election. Vote to insert the ballot question, that's your conversation, and vote to do that. You need to vote to insert that so I can print that on the ballot. I'm here basically to discuss voting or recommending that you vote to opt in for in-person early voting. With the laws that have been passed in the last couple of years, vote by mail is mandatory, so we have already begun collecting applications from folks. We sent out vote by mail applications with your census form, if you've opened that envelope. And people are free to copy that and send it back for whomever in their household wishes to vote by mail. In addition to that, obviously, is Election Day on March 22nd. The polls will be open from 8 to 8. And the last opportunity we can offer is in-person early voting, and that is required, the board is required to opt in so that we can do that. And what I'd like to recommend is that we hold in-person early voting at the town clerk's office. They just need to come to town hall, and it would be for a shortened period, Monday, March 10th through Wednesday, March 19th, excluding the weekend, and that would be during town hall normal business hours.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Question, you'd mentioned the form that came with, I forget what, the census, I think it was.
Yes.
That was for vote by mail?
Yes, it was.
So I see that was a different form, or at least the style was different than what the Secretary of State has?
Yes. There are no state elections scheduled currently for this year, so we had to create one of our own.
So people who checked off, I want all ballots, I want to vote by mail for all elections, that's only for state?
Any application to vote by mail is valid for 1 calendar year. Thank you
Okay.
for reminding me of that. So for the folks that checked off all elections last year, they need to reapply for this year.
Okay, so unless you fill out that form that came with the census, or go to the Secretary of State's website, is that valid as well?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm sorry to say the QR code on that application takes you to our online payment center, not the Secretary of State's website, but you can certainly just go to the Secretary of State. The Cares and Elections toggle button, and you can apply through the portal.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're here before us tonight, presumably because there's deadlines.
Yes, your deadline to insert a ballot question is 35 days before the election. So theoretically, next Monday is the last day you can vote for that, but I need to send the ballots to be printed by February 17th.
It's an interesting question maybe for a moderator at some point too. But there's a very specific amount on that ballot question.
It has to be by law. Division of Local Services.
Sorry, let me just, I suppose there's motions or the such a town meeting, and I don't know what would be entertained, and that number changes. What can occur?
That would be a question for council.
Which I've asked.
All I can tell you is that I have to order ballots by,
Right.
by a certain date in order to get them back to me so we can then mail them out.
Right.
And the question will be put on the ballot as you vote it today, presumably. So whether or not the question, if the question doesn't pass at town meeting, the question will be on the ballot regardless.
Or changes.
If the dollar amount changes, the number remains. It can be reduced, but it can't be exceeded.
The language on the ballot stays the same if the number is
Yeah,
changes.
you can't vote more than $5.8 million on an override question, though.
So the ballot,
Dictates the number.
the top,
Yes, the
if
ceiling.
for some reason the number's reduced, that's all the town meeting has given us authority to
Correct.
spend.
Yep.
So,
Yep. From what I understand, though, the levy amount may change from one year to the next, though. We would still have the authorization in a subsequent year to go to 5.8.
based on a subsequent vote at the ballots.
Nope.
No, I meant this.
This. Yep.
Sorry, wasn't
Correct.
clear. Huh,
So.
Wait a minute, what?
Wait.
So he could go
Can I
back.
ask another question?
yeah.
Based on that, right? So I just want to double check. If the March annual town meeting does not pass the override.
Which one?
But
The
question-
on the 8th?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and then.
this
but-
is moot.
Yeah, just want to, just for the, let me
Yes.
just finish my question so
Yep.
that people can listen in and hear your answer. So if it does not pass at the annual town meeting by majority vote, but passes at the ballot by majority vote, what is the outcome?
It's moot.
No, yeah, just to
Are
pass
you
it
saying
both.
that you could come back the next year? Or is it just moot?
It's moot. If it doesn't pass on the 8th, we're done.
I want to,
Come back
what
to the
you
other question.
just said before,
know.
Fernando, I need to understand. So what I think I heard you say is that if the town meeting votes for an override that is not 5.8, but something less than that,
Correct.
then the ballot question moves forward, but we only have authorization to spend the lesser amount. But I think I just heard you say that if that were the situation, the following year,
Hold on one sec. Mary's texting me.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
She may correct that.
Let's be
okay,
careful.
because that needs,
Let's be
that would
careful.
not be,
Let's be careful.
Yep, hold on one sec. I may have misspoken. Hold on a second.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna put her on the phone. It's easy enough to do. Hi there, Mary. You're on speaker. Say hi to everybody.
Deal or no deal?
Do you want me to run downstairs?
Yeah, it'd probably be easier.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Take 30 seconds here. You can stretch.
Cool. Yeah. What do you got that's next? Oh, the beach
We
lease.
can move for the opt-in. Can we vote for the opt-in while we're waiting?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's do the opt-in.
The what?
I don't
Discussion
know.
on vote to opt-in for an in-person
Oh,
early
yeah,
voting
yeah,
for
yeah.
annual
Yeah.
town
Yeah.
meeting.
Is there any reason not to do it? Seems pretty,
Yeah,
like a pretty good opportunity.
yeah.
No. Vote. I like any in-person voting.
Is this the first time we've done local elections, mail-in, or
We did it last year as
we
well.
did it last year?
Is there a legal reason for that?
So with the Votes Act of 22, it made vote by mail permanent for all elections.
All elections.
And municipal elections can opt in for in-person or, oh, it's like bonus shellfish. Municipalities can opt to vote in person early. If you don't vote to opt in, then we do not offer in-person early voting.
Can you vote? Can you opt out of mail?
You can.
You can.
But at this point, it's been such a popular option
Yeah.
Why
that
would
I
you wanna-
would never recommend doing that.
What about the money end of it, like for your staff and?
We receive reimbursements from the state
Okay.
for most, if not all of the expenses associated because it's mandated.
What about the stress and like?
It's, for this, I don't believe it'll be,
I just wonder why we're
Yeah.
doing. It's another thing for you.
So it's mandated.
Yeah.
You just basically, Kelly, Susan, you said it was mandated that we do in.
Mail-in, correct.
Mail-in ballots, mandated, so.
we could opt out, but again, I'm someone who
Why
believes to
would you?
give people every
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yes.
I like.
So,
You support it, right?
I do support it, and
Okay, good.
we bring in staff to help out when
Yeah.
we are overwhelmed
Nice.
by it.
Let's not debate it.
I'm a good old fashioned show up to the.
You can do that from 8 to 8 on the 22nd.
I mean, I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We give people choices here.
You've got Mary here now.
All right, Mary's here. Of course. 8 o'clock at night, Mary's always working.
So when it comes, if I understood the question correctly, and I just wanted to come down and chat with you about the process for the override vote. So there's 2 steps, as we know. There's the town meeting, and then there's the ballot. The town meeting vote is for the appropriation, and the ballot vote is for the authorization. So if the vote at the ballot passes, then the town is authorized to increase the levy limit up to the $5.8 million. However, if it does not pass at town meeting, then we don't have the ability to increase the appropriation. So I know I've thoroughly confused you. So
Okay, so
If-
that was a misspeak, right?
appropriation-
About- Okay.
Appropriation is a 4.7, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. So if it passes at the ballot, then in theory, it would be the town would have the ability in the following year to increase the levy.
That's what I was trying to say.
Okay, this is an important point, all right?
This is
It's
a very
that's
important point.
That's a different reply. So if it does not pass at the annual town meeting,
Correct.
it's the appropriation that doesn't pass,
Correct.
can we still, but the 5.8 passes at the ballot, does that mean we still have an override?
Not for FY '26.
But for FY '27?
So what that means is then the following year's town meeting, the omnibus budget, it would not be called an override budget. It would be part of an omnibus budget that would be presented for FY '27
Appropriation budget.
appropriation.
So okay.
So if town meeting,
Trying to wrap my head
I'm
around this
having a little
one.
trouble. If town meeting,
Do you want me to simplify it?
well, just a question first. So if town meeting voted to, somehow with motions and amendments, voted to appropriate $2 million,
Of the 4
Of the-
points,
Mhm.
of the
Right.
5.8.
Of the
Yep,
5.8.
okay, Yep,
then it goes to, and then, but 5.8's on the ballot because
Correct.
it has to be. And so then we go on the 22nd or before,
Mhm.
and we vote.
Correct.
And it passes.
Yep.
Then is it still 5.8 that's appropriated?
no. Nope, the appropriation, or the limit that we're allowed to
2
spend for the fiscal year that we are passing a budget,
Yeah.
in this case, it's FY '26.
Yeah.
So using your example, if at town meeting, the voters adjusted the proposal down from 4.7 down to 2 million, that is the upper limit that we could have as an appropriation. And then the results of the ballot will dictate whether we are able to utilize that appropriation.
Right.
If it passes at the if it passes at town meeting for 2 million, and it passes at the ballot for 5.8, for FY '26, the maximum that we would be allowed to add to the budget would be the additional 2 million. However, in subsequent years, that authorization, that 5.8, had been approved, and you have the capacity to utilize that much of the levy in future years.
Without a subsequent town meeting
You
vote.
do not,
No?
you have to have a town meeting vote
Vote.
every year
Yeah.
for an appropriation.
Appropriation.
You do not need, if it passes at the ballot box, then you do not need a future ballot vote.
Oh, I see. That's what you,
Why do people
Bypass.
keep saying 4.7?
That's in the
Because
budget.
the appropriation is 4.7 in order to leave excess levy capacity
Yeah.
for future years.
That's the sustainability component.
Sustainability, 5.8 gives us 5 years
Right,
of space
yeah, okay.
before we run out of our levy, we run out of excess levy capacity, based on current forecasts of 3% afterwards.
Does that make sense?
Thank
Did
you,
I
Mary.
thoroughly confuse you?
No,
Set it
this
up
is very
like
clear.
United.
This is very good.
Okay.
Because we nearly had a boo-boo.
We,
Wasn't going to let that
Thank
happen.
you, Aaron.
Ready for some motions?
Yes, I am.
All right, this first one will be the call for the 2025 annual election. I move that the Select Board directs the constable, the town clerk, or designee of the town of Duxbury to notify and warn the inhabitants of Duxbury who are qualified to vote in the annual town election to vote at precincts 1 through 6 at the Lieutenant Timothy J. Steele Athletic Building, 130 St. George Street in Duxbury, Massachusetts, on Saturday, March 22nd, 2025, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This next one is the annual town election ballot question, entitled Levy Limit Override, General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21C, Subpart G. And the motion stating the question is as follows. Shall the town of Duxbury be allowed to assess an additional $5,800,000 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purposes of funding the operating budgets of the town and the public schools for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025? Question mark.
And you move.
And I move that the Select Board vote to add the following ballot question to the annual town elections on Saturday, March 22nd, 2025,
I think the
read.
previous ballot
As read,
question.
yeah.
as read, yes.
As read.
As read. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ready for opt-in?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so this one is for opt-in and in-person early voting for annual town election. I move that the Select Board opt in to allow in-person early voting for the March 22nd, 2025 annual town election at the following location during the following times. In-person early voting will take place at the Town Clerk's Office, Town Hall, 878 Tremont Street, Monday, March 10th through Wednesday, March 19th, excluding Saturday and Sunday during normal Town Hall business hours.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's it. That's
All
it.
right, thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thanks, Susan.
All right.
Yes.
We have a beach lease article discussion. Do you have a copy of that article?
Oh, yeah, I do. In fact, I do.
God, it's hot in here.
It is hot in here
It
today.
is Article 10 in the annual town meeting warrant as drafted. It's the same language that you've seen for the last several years, and I also attached a copy of the current lease, which was signed on the 24th of last summer.
This is effective until,
Uh,
remind me again?
what is it, the 30th of June?
June
Yeah.
30.
Yeah,
2025, yeah.
yeah,
Are
this year.
there significant differences?
Well,
in the
that-
two?
No, this is the existing lease. We don't have a new lease yet. It usually, doesn't usually come until after town meeting has approved it.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
But Chris is here to be able to field any questions.
Yeah,
that you may have.
and it's a question for both. I understand you said it's not ready. Town meeting's asked to appropriate funds for a lease from July 1st, 2025 to the end of June 30th, 2026. Where is the lease?
Oh, we don't draft it. DVR drafts it.
Okay. So I'll ask that question of somebody from DBR. I'll start with that.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Chris Latazzi, Duxbury Beach Reservation. The answer to your question is currently I'm reworking on an amendment to an MOU between the town and Duxbury Beach because we need to change what we've already written to add in some bits for another agreement. Once that's completed, we'll be working on the amendments or changes to the lease. I have an idea currently what they are, but they're very minor.
Okay. Can we see that before town meeting?
Yeah, I shouldn't have a problem
So I
with that.
would like to approve or have a discussion, I want to make it available to the public too, before town meeting, the lease. And that's just my view. But I would like to sign the lease before we ask for funds for it.
I don't think you can,
Why can't we?
because the lease includes a dollar amount, and you need authorization from town meeting to do that before you sign it.
Can we at least approve the language in spirit or have a discussion about it?
We can certainly talk about it, yeah, not a problem.
That's fair enough. I understand that we can't sign it if we don't have the
Yeah,
funds to sign it. Right?
to execute a lease. Yeah. Yeah, you need their authorization on such terms and conditions as the board deems in their best interests.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's Mike's point, though, right?
Yep.
Because we need to determine what the best interests of the town are.
Right.
We always have this conversation backwards and about 2 weeks before the beach is about to open. I mean,
Yep.
before the beach season starts.
So I can tell you what the changes are. I mean, it's going to be
I'd
the
rather see it
dates.
all at once.
Okay. It's the same changes we do every year, is all I'm saying.
I figured as much.
The
and I
date
didn't
changes and the amount.
I
This
think-
year, the amount's staying the
Usually
same.
change the dates. Not we, DVR does.
So this being, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I have no problem reviewing it earlier than we typically do, but is there something that you're looking for to be included in the lease that isn't currently there?
No, and we
Okay.
made our comments the last couple of years. They were respectfully rejected. And for the most part, it is not our lease, it is Duxbury Beach Reservation's lease. So I'm not asking for any other date changes. I'm interested in what these MOU changes are, but I'd like to see them in conjunction with the current lease before we have that discussion.
Well, it's our lease, we're leasing the beach from the landlords,
Yeah,
so.
I know.
Well, it's their form of lease.
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay.
The landlord can state the conditions, and it's up, but what I'm hearing is up to us whether we like the lease or not, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
And I'm
it or leave
sorry,
it.
you said you wanted
Take it
to
or
be
leave it.
part of the MOU work now?
Whatever's going to be included in the lease for the upcoming year, I'd like to know before we,
Yeah, the MOU is a completely different project. It
Right.
doesn't
yeah,
have to do
and
with
then
the lease.
that's fine. I don't, does anybody want to see that? I don't need to see that.
No, I don't need, I mean, I think
I don't
the
need
only
to see
thing
either of them, really.
I'm trying to think back on some of the things that have been talked about at the least. I know that there were concerns by some of the members of the public about the predation, but I know that we've also learned that we have to have that in order to access the beach. So I think, you know, our hands are tied as is the reservations for a lot of the restrictions.
Yeah, and that provision
Predation.
provides notice to the town.
Yeah,
If that provision wasn't in there, we wouldn't get notice.
Yes, for me, it seems that we've had sort of in-depth discussions on this for the last few years.
Mhm.
And if there's no actual changes besides dates and whatever, that, I mean,
Yeah, I just want to know that. I want to see it as long as it's done.
yeah.
And I can vote on the article tonight, but I just do want to see that. I think the public deserves a chance to kind of see the terms of it too, before they appropriate $1 million. They've
Totally
seen
up
it.
to you. It's totally up to you if you want to do it tonight or next
I'll
week.
shoot to have that to you by the end of next week.
That'd be great. And maybe we could mark it for, I don't know, any night before town meeting.
No problem.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a suggestion? Chris had mentioned she'd be prepared to describe some of the proposed edits to us tonight. We're all interested in providing as much information as possible to the public. So in the event this is going to come back on the agenda, in my mind, it would be more productive if we're able to maybe hear tonight some of what those edits are, so if folks want to come to the next meeting, that we're going to discuss this rather than wait and then look at it later.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you mind? Yeah.
No, not a problem. There's only 2 of them, and this is Chris Latazzi writing, so
Sure.
it hasn't gone through grammar or legal, but any emergency fire or police record filed on town leased DBR property to be provided to TBR within so many days. So there's been fire that happened on our property. There's a car that was lit on fire on our property. It would be great, as folks are leasing the beach, it'd be your responsibility to get that report to us, because sometimes we don't even know that there was a fire on our property, and that would be helpful to know. So I'm asking that that be put in, whether it's put into an MOU, you know, it's more of a to-do protocol kind of thing, so I don't really think it belongs in the lease, but that was one thing that I was going to ask for. And the second is for the storage of deterrents, that they happen off-site. So some of
For
the
the what?
pallet
Oh, the
deterrents,
storage of the okay.
were the deterrents that the town,
Turns, I thought you said turns.
I did you too. I thought we were
balance.
Where are
storing
we
the
storing the
turns. I didn't- yeah.
We bring them out next month. Yeah, we let them fly around for a while.
I got some ideas.
So the pallets are moved, but there's also all these posts with flagging tape and everything, and we don't have the storage for it inside. And it was product that the town, through Beach Shops and DBR, we both split the cost of buying their tomato stakes. They're like wooden, 5 feet high, 1 inch by 1 inch. We need to keep them somewhere that we could put a tarp over it, et cetera. And right now they're kind of strewn. So I was
Where are
hoping
they
they could
now,
be
Chris?
stayed with the pallets, huh?
Where are they now?
They're right now in front of High Pines,
Okay.
but they're blocking our access to get to posts and stuff.
Yeah.
So when the pallets go off next time, if the
Bring 'em with
stakes
it.
could go with them. And to be honest, it'd be helpful because there's a volunteer group that's going through and putting all the flagging on them. So it'd be easier access for them as well. So those are the changes.
Those sounds like those both sound like MOU things.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, but the MOU is wrapped up in the northern lot, so
That's why I just wanted to have that
It's a new paragraph.
conversation with you. Exactly. So those are the only two changes.
Okay.
The dollar value is staying what it was last year, so
Thank you.
it's literally just the years that has changed on the date for the month because it's a quarterly payment.
Does anybody have any questions about the dollar amount? I know we had this similar discussion last year.
Can it be less?
That's a great question.
You ask for questions.
Yeah.
It is a good question. The short answer is that, I know that we all know that the town is feeling pressures of price increases. And as a nonprofit, we're feeling those pressures and increases as well.
So that's a no.
No, I'm sorry.
All right.
She's just trying to say it in a nice.
She
Right.
said it very nicely, I thought.
It was beautifully stated.
Now,
And the lease did stay rather than,
right. And
That's right. That's very true.
last year you had at least a two-part, but maybe a three-part breakdown of what that $1 million pays for. Do you have those numbers off the top of your head?
I do.
Great.
So DBR's annual average expenses for the beach access program, the coastal resiliency and ecological preservation, which is only really counting planting vegetation. For the last 3 years, the average is over $2.4 million.
Okay. So that's that's what it costs, but for this million, I remember you breaking out something like 340 was towards.
Well, 400,000 right off the top goes to pay for the endangered species program
Yep.
that we need to have in order for you to sell stickers to invite
Yep.
people. So I know it's $1 million, but we start with 600, and that's 600. I mean, you could put it towards any of those, but right now we're trying to work on cobble berms on the bayside. That's to maintain the road, particularly to get to crossover 1 is the issue. So, I mean, I could spend that money 6 ways, to be honest.
Okay. All right.
Ready for motion?
I am, unless anybody has any questions. Anybody on the Zoom world? No? Okay. There being none, I'm happy to take a motion.
I move to recommend approval of Article 10, Duxbury Beach Lease, in the annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Do you need to see it on another agenda, or was that enough? The only change, I think, were the dates, right? Yeah.
I don't.
You want to open up for comment to residents?
Yeah, I think so they can see it. I think that's fair, so we can say.
I think
It was a good idea.
Yeah, I think.
Fine with
we
me.
Obviously can't sign it.
Right.
I stepped on that one, but. All right, we have time tonight to do a town manager's report.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Just one item at the moment. Let's see. Sorry. 2, 3,
Wow.
4.
Good luck, Brenna.
Yeah, good luck, Brendan.
She about to deliver?
Thank you. Okay. What I'm giving you is a handout that we've been working on. This is there will be 2 public information sessions on the FY26 proposed budget override. They will be held at the Duxbury High School Middle School Presentation Hall. They will be on Wednesday, February 12th at 6:30 p.m. and Wednesday, February 26th, also at 6:30 p.m. The town of Duxbury is hosting 2 public information sessions to discuss the FY26 proposed operating budget override. We encourage attendees to join members of the Select Board, Finance Committee, School Committee, and Town and School Department staff who will be in attendance to help answer your questions. Please note, both sessions will be covering the same information. The proposed override corrects a structural budget deficit, maintains and restores critical services, and adds strategic investments across the following. Under the General Government Services, this funding to the Select Board line, accounting, assessing, municipal services, and planning departments, education, public safety, fire and police, public works, lands and natural resources, DPW administration, vehicle maintenance, highway and road maintenance and cemeteries, library and recreation, beach operations, and facilities management, maintenance and repairs. Please join us to learn more about the proposal, the process, the tax impact to you, and to ask questions. More information can be found on the town's website, and there's a link below. We look forward to seeing you and having participation at these two important events. And then there are 2 dates to be saved, one being the annual town meeting, Saturday, March 8th at 9 a.m. at the Duxbury Performing Arts Center, and the annual town election on Saturday, March 22nd from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Lieutenant Timothy Steele Athletic Building. Just wanted to provide that information to you, make you aware. It'll be posted all over the place.
Great, thank you.
That's a good question on this. Sure. Randy, will pac-tv be covering either or both of these?
No, they won't. It will be recorded for presentation later, and it will not have a Zoom capability. We don't have the ability to do Zoom from it. So if you'd like to go, you need to be in person.
So it'll be recorded?
Yes, it will.
Okay, so that's a video recording?
Yes.
And where will that be available for folks who can't make either of these?
On the town's website, on the Override website, we'll have a link to wherever it lives.
Okay, so if folks can't make these, there'll be an opportunity to watch it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's really good. The town webpage on its homepage, it has the usual tabs: services, annual town meeting, meme updates, calendar, news, and social media. There's another tab marked green. It's called Fiscal Year 26 Override Info, and it has all that information. Plus, there's also a Fiscal Year 26 Override Slides PDF that you can download and kind of go through those slides and help you understand what the override is about and the impact on the town and your tax bill.
Exactly. And I want to thank Mary McKinnon, our finance director, for putting that together. She spearheaded it and did a great job with it.
Yeah. There's also,
and it's being updated almost daily.
Correct. And there's also frequently asked questions. You can also click on that link. So there's quite a bit of information, and I strongly recommend that you go onto the town website and get access to that so that you can get yourself informed and able to have that informed vote at the town meeting and at the ballot.
Go ahead.
And there's another session tomorrow. Excuse me one second. I just remembered another session tomorrow at 5:45 at the Mary Room at the library. Right. Sorry. Please go ahead.
Are you done with your, I had
Yes,
a
I am.
couple of things
Yes,
for
please.
your town manager report. So water testing, I
Yeah.
think I heard that the next round of tests were in January. Do we have the results?
I'll find out.
And then my other question is, several weeks ago, I brought up the,
One sec. I'm sorry. Excuse me one second. Okay. Go ahead, please.
the lane change barriers on Route 3.
Yeah.
And there had been a fatal accident there, and I had spoken to the fire chief, who was hoping that the town could reach out to the state in hopes of making a better situation. I was wondering how we made out on that.
I don't know. I don't know what is the specific request. That's a state highway.
Right, so when I brought it up there, where there's the route, I think that the lane changes are because of the overpass or
East Street.
something that's happening.
Yeah, the East Street construction.
So
No,
there,
I think it's, what she's talking about is over Temple or North.
it is, it's further, it is north.
Yeah,
So
it's north, it's between the
50 mile an
Duxbury
hour
and
zone.
Pembroke.
Yeah, where it comes,
So
where there's no passing.
Some lane changes where
Okay.
there's I've had several
Barriers
residents,
right
and
up
there are
to
these barriers that come right up on you when you're in the fast lane. And it's very dangerous, and it was part of, that was the scene of a fatal accident. I've had several calls from residents that are concerned about it, and I had talked to the fire chief, who also has thought that if the town reached out to the state in hopes of, sometimes they have a police officer at some of these bad locations just sitting there. I'm not advocating for that, but there's got to be a better answer. And let's do something before somebody else gets hurt.
Sure.
Just an FYI, they have made differences, improvements to the barriers, right? They've put in more cones and more stuff to kind of highlight. Before there was just there was nothing in front of the
Yeah, it was
barrier,
all
right?
set
But
there.
now they've actually put more signage and more indications to get people to move away and not come up to the barrier suddenly, right? So they have made improvements
Well,
since we
that's
talked.
good. I did not know that,
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
but I think as
Yeah.
much as we can do.
Yep, I will talk to both Rob and Sheila, and I may have Sheila give you a call if there's specifics, if that's
Yeah.
okay with you. Perfect.
Yeah, Rob knows right where they were, because I talked to him right after that accident, so.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Randy, I have two
Yes.
things, one
Yeah.
more recent and the other kind of a while ago.
Yeah.
Candace Martin assisted the town with a $2 million CZM grant for the seawall.
Mm-hmm,
That was a while ago, like last August.
yeah.
Did we ever hear anything?
Yeah, I thought we got the award.
Yeah, we did. I
Yeah,
thought
I
we
Not
did.
the $3 million from the dam and seawall, but there was another $2 million grant to CZM. It was going to just be under the general, I know she had spoken with,
She did get us the seawall grant, but I don't know about the CZM grant.
right?
I'll have to look.
Because that involved a discussion with the Climate Resiliency Task Force to see whether they were going to go for that $2 billion.
I don't know if it
that
ever went
past year.
anywhere. I'll look it up.
But we ended up, I know we applied for it. Just don't know what the result was.
I'll see what I can find out.
And Alicia's on there, maybe she has the answer.
Okay.
She may.
Yes, no, we did not get that, Mike. We got the dam and seawall for $3 million.
Okay.
But not the $2 million?
Thank you, Alicia.
All right.
That's
As
unfortunate.
long as we're on the topic, I wanted to just ask Renee, will we be able to apply for a second round of that dam and seawall this year?
I hope so, because I'd love to. I'd love to have it funded by somebody else if we could, right?
Right.
I'll see if we are eligible to be able to do so.
Let's,
Okay, that would be great. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. No problem.
and the CZM again. Take another crack at it.
All right.
Yeah, we were successful with the complete streets, right?
Yeah,
Applying the
anything
second
to
time.
knock that amount down.
Yeah.
The other one was, we had an open question last week about what if any additional steps we can take with this sand mining. I was certainly taken back by the extent of, if true, and I'm assuming we were given true information, how much mining was being done over the last couple of years since our passing of that bylaw. Is there anything more that can be done other than this moratorium on the bylaws or the regulation itself?
On new mining.
And
Well, I think
I know it's
the-
not on the agenda, so I just,
Okay.
can we put it on for another date about, or? is
Let me
there
just give you an
more?
update. I'll make
An
it that
update.
way. The moratorium stops it all for the
Well, it
moment.
stops
Any
anybody
new,
else from
any
seeking
new,
a permit.
any new
Permits.
Of the
applications.
existing permit.
Yes, that's still going.
I
That's,
didn't even know we had a second year of permitting on that.
yeah, that's still going. That's not impacted by the moratorium. The moratorium is for new applications, and that's something that Amy and I are working on. Amy and I and Jim, excuse me. And what was the second part?
Are
Yeah,
you
just what
asking
the
if we
existing-
can do anything about the existing? 'Cause
The
I-
reactive, can we do any, I asked that question last time. Can we
Yeah,
go ahead and
I
stop?
don't think you can.
I don't think you
that
can
the
either.
permit has been issued, and under the, again, it was unintended consequences.
I know.
And we recognize that there's some big, significant problems. We are just not consistent with the bylaws or the intent of what the town, we
Right.
just, so
We're looking to fix that.
We're working to fix that as best we can, while still allowing for some smaller type projects, so that, which would stay in town, to, help the beach.
How long is the
and whatnot.
permit on Tea Kettle Lane good for?
Well, until it's complete, until the project's over.
I mean, can dig to the
I'd have to
core
look
of
at
the
it.
earth.
I
you know?
No,
I mean, I thought it would, I mean,
There's
Forgive
an
me, that's fine.
expiration on a permit. I
Yeah,
don't think
when's
you
the
can't
permit?
go on forever. You
Yeah,
have to.
I'd have to look.
more about this.
I don't know. I'll have to look.
Yeah,
It is certainly unfortunate.
yeah. I want to know a little bit more about this. If we have to put it on the next agenda,
Commissioners, right?
I'd like to know that.
Hey, Mike, I took a drive up there.
I've done it.
You've done it, good.
Yeah, I live right,
There's a combination, there's sand mining, but there's also a lot of house construction going on as well.
that's what I always thought it was.
Yeah,
so-
there's a lot of that is going on as
Yeah,
well.
so. Go ahead.
Inquire of the town manager. Rainey, question on a project that had been mentioned quite a while ago, and I think it's in the distance, but any update on the Route 3, 3A double roundabout project?
No.
I checked the Mass DOT's website. It doesn't seem like there's much activity. Do we have any forecast on when that might happen?
I don't. That was, the last time that was really talked about was certainly when Val was here, and then a little bit more when Chris Ryan was here. But in the absence of a planner, there's no one to run with that ball.
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure it's still on the tip.
I think it is.
But I don't know how quickly they update the status on the DOT's website. It looked like it was kind of stalled out.
Actually, I was just advised that those projects have been updated, at least in terms of the Powder Point Bridge.
Well, I can take another look, but I didn't see anything.
Why, do we have an update on the Powder Point Bridge?
I don't, but somebody had sent an email saying that information had been updated, either the dollar amount or what was that, Fernando? Do you remember?
The dollar amount doubled.
Yeah, to like
But-
121 million.
I think, let me just, before I misspeak, let me just tell you.
And it's important to mention that because that group is getting ready to get together to have their first meeting.
Great.
I thought on the Route 3, 3A, that we had gotten a presentation, I mean, it's probably a couple of years, but that they were just going back for sort of final designs or redesign
It was a
or...
double
A double,
rotary.
Yeah.
double...
Yep.
Double
We were
rotary.
splitting it with Kingston.
Roundabout.
There
Yeah.
was some
Double roundabout. yeah.
cooperative.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
But I thought we were sort of further...
I thought we were just
Good.
on the list, waiting.
Yeah,
That's what I
it was
thought.
pretty much conceptual still at that point.
Yeah.
Was that from Nancy?
No, it was from, I'm trying to find it. Oh, here we go. I've got, let me see, don't hold up the meeting. Let me see if I can find the email here. Go ahead, keep on talking.
Keep on talking.
It's not a dollar amount for us, right? It's for the
No,
state.
it's for the state.
Okay,
Right.
I think we can move on.
Yeah, please.
Committee appointments, reappointments, and resignations.
Okay, we talked about Cindy becoming a full member of Coastal Resiliency, so I don't think, that's not here, that's why I mention it, but I think we're covered.
It's not a resignation.
All right, I move that the Select Board appoint or reappoint the following people to the following boards. To Coastal Resiliency Task Force, this is the new member, Nathan Kelsall, for a term ending June 30, 2028. The Highway Safety Committee, Thomas Scanlon, for a term that ends June 30, 2026. Metropolitan Area Planning Council, Wayne Dennison, who's the Vice Chair of the Planning Board, to be the delegate, Planning Board's delegate, to fill the unexpired term of the incumbent for a term ending June 30, 2027. On the Open Space Committee, Lauren Soroy, Planning Board member, to be the Planning Board rep, to fill an unexpired term with a term ending June 30 of this year, 2025. The following individuals to the Zoning Recodification Working Group, and I checked, this is not a new group, that we had already established this. Apparently, we just forgot to appoint the members. So that was my question, because I saw it looked like we were establishing something new, and we're not. We're just fixing, apparently, something we were supposed to do before. So the following members to the Zoning Recodification Working Group, all for a term ending June 30, 2026. Kristen Rapp, Planning Board Rep, Judy Barrett, ZBA Rep, Jim Wazlewski, Building Commissioner, Jim Lampert at large, Mickey McGonigal at large, and Ed Mayo at large. Those are all the appointments.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The following boards and committees have one seat each. Design Review Board, Duxbury Cultural Council, Economic Advisory Committee, Municipal Commission on Disabilities, and Nuclear Advisory Committee. The following committee has 2 seats. Alternative Energy Committee. If anyone is interested in volunteering on a board or committee, you are encouraged to fill out a talent bank form, which can be found on the town's website under the Forms and Documents tab.
Rainey, the Alternative Energy Committee, can we get on the agenda that the number on that committee that we agreed to change?
Yeah,
That-
changing the number of members?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
I thought that, weren't they coming before us and had to reschedule?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Before they come back, just another heads up, if we could find out how the charger is doing out there in terms of how many people are charging their car. I haven't seen many people using it. And when we made that change to start charging people, we had heard back from the Alternative Energy Committee that it would have probably been a good idea to reach out to them and get their feedback. Apparently they had some information, some programs, some, I don't know whether it's funding, I don't know. They had some ideas on the charging station. So if we knew how it was doing with our new setting of the rates before he comes in, or they come in, that group comes in, that would be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
One-day liquor license.
Okay, looks like we have a couple of them. This is for the Art Complex Museum and Artist Reception. I move that Ms. Allison Cohen, as representative of the Duxbury Art Complex Museum, is granted a one-day wine and malt license to hold an artist reception on Sunday, February 16th, 2025, from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Art Complex Museum, 189 Alden Street, contingent upon the conditions of the license.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, trivia night.
Be there or be square.
Yeah, there we go.
We have to pay for that.
I know.
And
we
by
were
way
supposed
of full
to pay.
disclosure, I think the select board is buying a table, but,
Or individual things.
Individually.
well, yeah, we'll be together
will.
individually.
At the table.
So,
Individual strengths.
yeah. None of us have any financial
not.
interest.
No,
None of us
no
have any
financial interest.
in this, so
No.
we're comfortable voting on this. I move that, this is for the Duxbury Rotary Club Trivia Night. I move that Ms. Barbara Mello, as representative of the Duxbury Rotary Club, has granted a one-day wine and malt license to hold a trivia night on Saturday, March 29th, 2025, from 6:30 p.m. till 9:30 p.m. at the Duxbury Senior Center, 10 Mayflower Street, contingent upon the conditions of the license.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, minutes.
All right.
You have minutes?
Here's my motion.
Right.
Are they on a different,
Different tab.
Anybody want to call out specific dates, or are we all okay to vote on all of them?
For it.
I'm okay with small.
Well said.
Okay. I move to approve the January 6th, 2025, January 9th, 2025, January 16th, 2025, and January 23rd, 2025 Select Board Open Session minutes as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I move to approve the January 13th, 2025 Select Board Open Session minutes as presented. Fernando to abstain.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
Well done, Fernando.
Yeah, I learned. I followed
Announcements.
instructions.
We have 2 announcements. Number 1, 2025 Beach and Transfer Station stickers. New 2025 Beach and Transfer Station stickers effective April 1st, 2025 through March 31st, 2026 will be available for purchase in March 2025. Number 2, the next scheduled Select Board meetings are as follows. Thursday, that's this Thursday, February 6th, 2025, with the Finance Committee in the Ellison Room at the Senior Center, starting at 7 o'clock p.m. And Monday, a week from today, February 10th, 2025, regular Select Board meeting in the Mural Room with open session beginning at 6:30 p.m.
Rainey, if you buy a sticker in March, is there still a break?
Yeah, the early bird discount.
Right?
For the transfer station?
Beach.
No, beach. Only for the beach.
Got to deflate your tires this summer. I don't want to be pulling you out.
So how much is the discount?
What is it? I don't know, I bought one in yours.
10 or
I
15
ask that
minutes.
every year, but then I never see where the discount is listed. I really don't. I think,
It should be on the town's
I think you should
website.
definitely check that.
There is one.
There is
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, I want to say it's like $10 or $15.
Oh,
Yeah, I thought it
that's
was higher than
something.
that.
Maybe there is, I don't know. It's just,
Well, you can pay the higher price if you want, right?
Yeah,
you can.
I think that's great if you
Consider it a
can.
donation.
Donate to the operating fund.
There you go. All right. I would like a motion to adjourn. So moved. Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.